Hello again. It's been quite a while, but after a very long and unexpected hiatus, I'm finally back with another Enneagram and fiction video. So sorry to keep people waiting, but life was a little bit too hectic for a while. But in the very long time that I've been gone, I'm excited to announce that I actually got certified as an Enneagram life coach. I have a website, an Instagram, and everything. So please feel free to check me out at the website. I'll link it in the description box below, or follow me on Instagram at January Life Coaching. I'm slowly going to be starting to put more Enneagram content on my Instagram especially, so feel free to check it out. Leave a comment in any of my existing posts asking questions about what you're curious about. Okay, so for the month of November, I thought it would be fun if I did another Disney movie since Thanksgiving is around the corner and people tend to like to watch Disney movies when they're together for family time. I'm so sorry that I keep doing Disney movies. I promise I'll do something else soon. So I have been obsessed with the movie Encanto ever since it first came out. I think I watched it like 6 times now, and I have literally cried every single time. I really love this movie, and I thought it would be really fun if we did an ensemble cast typing video because I felt like the characters were either really realistic or semi-realistic enough for me to kind of deep dive and talk about it. So I'm going to try to type as much of the Madrigal family as I can. Let's go. We are starting with the main character of the movie, Mirabel Madrigal. She has a special place in my heart because I strongly believe we are the exact same Enneagram type, a self-preservation type 2. Like many 2s, Mirabel is others referencing. She identifies herself based on her relationships and connections with those she loves. In her case, with the Madrigal family. She tries to play up her own worth by boasting about her family's specialness as if it transfers to her by association.
My family's amazing, and I'm in my family's so.
And although this is quite literal in this magical family, Mirabel feels the similar shame of a type 2, trying to earn her place in the family and make up for an inner lack through her general support and helpfulness to the family.
I actually made these as a surprise for you. Ooh.
She's naturally skilled at attuning to other people's emotional states, like her little cousin Antonio, or even the casa itself. And while good at comforting and cheering others, she has an inner sense of loneliness and shame about being different that she hasn't yet soothed at the beginning of the film. I find her behavior to differ from type 9, another common mistype I see online about Mirabel, because she inserts herself way too much in different places, which is more 2-ish behavior than 9-ish, even if 9s may notice the same things as 2s.
You wish you could have seen more, so see more. Have another vision.
No, see, I don't do visions anymore.
But you could.
But I won't.
You can't say the weight of the world is on your shoulders. The end.
She definitely has that type 2 core weakness of pride, repressing her sad feelings and focusing on what she can bring to others with an I can fix it or savior mentality that motivates her to step up into action when in reality, it's also equally coming from an inner desire to be needed and wanted by others.
I will save the miracle.
Unlike typical 2s, Mirabel is a lot more aware of her own self and place in the family. This is due to her dominant instinct being self-preservation as opposed to social or sexual. As a self-pres dominant 2 myself, I can attest to how I often don't feel like any of the type 2s I meet in a room. And actually, a lot of my closest friends are type 4s who vibe with me in the ways I wrestle internally with myself, my shame, and my desire to be loved. The difference at the end of the day is how others referencing I am compared to my type 4 friends, and how my type 4 friends want to have a unique identity and find their true self even if it comes at the expense of being accepted or loved.
Did someone say flowers?
Mainstream Enneagram pop culture doesn't really talk enough about how type 2s can experience envy. While different from how type 4s unconsciously focus on envy, type 2s also can feel an inner longing to be loved or admired when they see others living that reality in front of them. The end of the film is one of the most healing messages a type 2, or any heart type dealing with shame, could experience, which is that you are enough just as you are.
We see how bright you burn.
This scene literally makes me cry every time. Small side note here, but I just want to say that I think the emphasis of this ending scene for Mirabel is not just about finding that missing piece for herself, but also that those she loves around her see her fully and accept and love her fully. It's similar, but still a little different from Elsa's type 4 coming into her self-example in Frozen 2. While Elsa finally sees that nothing is missing inside herself, Mirabel is finally seen by her loved ones, which is the most healing thing a type 2 could experience. That said, I still think this ending scene could speak to all heart types, 2s, 3s, and 4s, depending on how aware of their inner shame they are. Moving on to Mirabel's siblings, I believe Isabela is a social 3 who is living in a culture where success is defined by her abuela, who I believe is a type 1.
Such a fine young man with our perfect Isabela will bring a new generation of magical blessings. Oh, such a perfect match.
So perfect.
We meet Isabela from Mirabel's outsider point of view, so we first get to see the image Isabela wants us to see. The beautiful and perfect eldest daughter of the Madrigal family. It's not until Mirabel and Isabela have their confrontation that we see that behind the scenes, Isabela struggles to live up to the pressure she feels from her grandmother and family to be all that she shows others.
Everything was perfect. Abuela was happy. The family was happy.
In the Madrigal family, their abuela sets the standard of what is desired of the family and what is admirable. So as a 3, Isabela shapeshifts into that particular standard, which for her is to be sweet, beautiful, and perfect, like a 1.
I've been stuck being perfect my whole entire life.
But like a lot of 3s, behind the scenes, she keeps the truth of how hard she works to be perfect a secret from everyone, including her own family. When in front of other people, all of her acts look effortless.
I make perfect practiced poses. So much hides behind my smile.
In her solo song, What Else Can I Do?, we finally see that behind her perfect facade of beauty, obedience, and goodness is an internal fatigue and an inner longing for something genuine.
I'm so sick of pretty, I want something true, don't you?
Mirabel helps Isabela connect to a genuine part of herself, in this case her anger, and break out of her type 3 autopilot tendencies to focus on outside looks or achievement. Her song Moment is a beautiful example of a type 3 who breaks free from deceit, connects with her heart, and explores who she is authentically on the inside.
You're a bad influence.
I also just want to point out this moment in Isabela's song where Mirabel is really cheerleading her on. The look in Isabela's eyes when she realizes that she's not alone and that someone is going to be supporting her as she works through connecting with her authentic self and just really pushing herself to see how far she can truly go, really cements for me that Isabela is an others referencing type 3. She still at the end of the day wants admiration, wants acceptance, wants love, and with Mirabel she gets that and feels free enough to explore those parts of herself. Luisa was admittedly a little harder for me to type than Mirabel and Isabela, just because, to be quite honest, she's not the most realistic character, and she also had a lot more limited screen time. It also seems like the internet is very divided on what type Luisa could be, so let me just add my own vote into the ring. My best guess is that Luisa is a social 8. Her character feels more like what the deepest parts of a social 8 might feel, even if they themselves are not aware of it, so she's not exactly the most accurate, literal depiction of an 8 on the surface, but it was my best guess. Luisa's song Surface Pressure is one of my favorites of the whole movie. Anecdotally, this song resonates with all of my friends who are eldest siblings, or the sibling on whom fell the most responsibility. So beyond the Enneagram, it makes sense that this song struck such a chord with so many people, especially in the child of immigrants context. But however universal her responsible child of immigrants who carries the burden experience may be, Luisa as a personality still has a type. The reason I believe she's an 8 is because of how much she identifies on the surface with strength. 8s see the world in terms of strong and weak, and 8s do not want to be the weak ones. They often default to carrying weights and responsibilities without even pausing to question whether they should be the one to do so. Luisa explains at the outset of her song,
I'm the strong one, I'm not nervous, I'm as tough as the crust of the earth is.
I know a lot of people have wondered if Luisa is a 2 because she seems to orient herself on wanting to serve others, but as a type 2, let me tell you, 2s do not care about being the most servant-hearted person. They care about emotionally manipulating you to love them and want them around. And that can be done by charming you, making you laugh, being a good friend, etc. While they do put an emphasis on being a kind and loving person, they do not, on average, think about how to help people just because they want to help people. That is just the tip of the iceberg for type 2s, and if surface pressure is going deeper inside Luisa's psyche, this question of her purpose outside of doing service is definitely not a deeper layer of a type 2. This stereotype of 2s just wanting to help people is one of the biggest misunderstandings of 2s, and I would love it if this lack of nuanced understanding would just go away forever and leave me alone. Thank you. I've also heard the hypothesis that Luisa could be a 3 because she worries about her worth. Others have wondered if she could be a 6 with her inner anxieties, or a 9 because of her desire to be part of the community. While these are all great points that people are noticing about Luisa, I think it's important to zoom out and look at her holistically. Everybody can have worries. Everyone can struggle with their self-worth and want to belong. But it's the way that they grapple through those struggles that can give us hints as to their core unconscious personality type. Luisa is anxious in this movie because her identity was based on her strength, and something mysterious is happening to sap her of that strength. That is not a core issue of a 3, 6, or a 9. That is what would probably happen to an 8 if they magically started weakening all of a sudden. On top of that, Luisa is probably the countertype 8, the social subtype. Sometimes, social 8s get mistyped as 2s because of how much of an archetypal mama bear they can be for their community and family. But again, the core belief of 8s is they need to be strong and not weak. They need to carry everyone they love on their shoulders. I've actually seen type 8s who are put into a situation where they didn't have to do anything, and it was a little unsettling for them. I don't think 8s are used to not needing to do something for those around them. And if for some magical supernatural reason the 8s I know lost their physical or mental strength, I think they would freak out like Luisa too.
Oh, I'm a loser! Luisa!
And man, I'm talking about Luisa way more than I first thought I would, but here's my last point. I think a stereotype for 8s is that nothing bothers them and they have super thick skin and they're not sensitive like other types and other people. But we have to remember that the Enneagram isn't meant to box people in. It's meant to make space for the potential of the nuanced layers and depths that make up each person.
Under the surface, was Hercules ever like, yo, I don't wanna fight Cerberus?
I've heard so many 8s in coaching groups and smaller, closer friend groups talk about how people on the outside looking in see an 8 rolling up their sleeves to get things done and then leave like it didn't affect them. But the truth is, it does affect them. Whatever the hard thing was that they had to do, it affects them like it would affect any human. Inside of every 8 is one of the softest, most sensitive humans that you could ever meet. That's why they have to act so strong to protect that part of themselves. And I don't think we count the cost that the 8s around us pay for the work and strength they always provide. Okay, now for the cousins. They're not as featured in the movie, so we don't have as much to go off of, so please just take my typing with large grains of salt. Starting with Dolores, I think she's a self-preservation 9. Again, I'm not confident because she's not as heavily featured, but there is enough of her in the film for me to suspect that she's at least one of the withdrawn triad types, which is 4, 5, or 9. Of those 3 types, she seems to be more others-referencing than self-referencing, which leads me to believe she's most likely a 9. Her special gift of hearing actually amplifies her attention to other people. But 4s would pay more attention to their inner world rather than those around them, and 5s would focus a little more on conserving energy and avoiding entanglements. Personally, if I had to choose, I would say she's a 9 because of the way 9s are usually incredibly perceptive of other people and what they're going through, but they don't usually voice out their incredibly valuable insights. 9s are often overlooked, unfortunately, and I feel Dolores experiences that a lot in her family. Moreover, Dolores knows Bruno is still in the house with the family the entire movie and basically for years, but never once does she directly communicate with anyone in the family about this. I think she does this because she's averse to ruffling the status quo of the family dynamic and doesn't want to be the cause of a major disruption. Even when she's given a space to talk about Bruno, she doesn't speak directly, but rather gives vague hints about what she knows.
Do you understand?
At the very end of the film, with all of the conflict out of the way and the truth in the open, Dolores feels safe enough to confidently say,
Yo, I knew he never left, I heard him every day.
There is the scene where Dolores tells the entire family about the prophecy and the supposed downfall of the family.
Mirabel from Bruno's vision, she's in it, she's gonna destroy the magic, and now we're all doomed!
While I've been speaking predominantly of how self-preservation 9s in particular keep to themselves, I do think that emergencies can of course trigger direct action or communication. Since 9s care about both inner and outer peace, quote unquote, in a situation where the family looks like it's literally falling apart, it might feel better to speak what she knows so that it no longer burdens her. Not to mention how 9s can speak out if it feels like the right thing to do for others. The small nuance I see in Dolores and other 9s is how they don't necessarily speak out for their own sake. The way she holds herself back from going after the person she likes in order to go along with her family's agenda rather than her own also feels very 9ish. So it's a beautiful thing when she seizes her chance to be with Mariano, who, side note, I believe is a playfully exaggerated social 4.
Let's get married.
Slow down.
Camilo gets even less screen time, but I would probably guess he's a type 7. If I had to absolutely guess an instinct, I would say self-preservation, but don't even hold me to that. Camilo's lighthearted and fun, and he uses his gift of shapeshifting to entertain others.
You are make your papa proud.
I don't sound like that. I don't sound like that.
He also likes to play a little with his cousins. Last but not least of the cousins, we have Antonio. What type do I think he is? I would say, don't type a child. I mean, I know a lot of these cousins are probably under 18, but still, Antonio is clearly most definitely still a child. And while I could have my personal ideas of what type he is, I am not going to share them because I believe it's good practice to avoid typing children early in their lives. We want them to feel free from any type of lens placed on them, even if they might be doing that to themselves unconsciously as they slowly build their personal defense mechanisms to their personal deepest fears. On to the generation of Madrigal triplets. First up, we are going to talk about Bruno. I think Bruno is a self-preservation 6. Bruno is a sweet person who is dealt an unlucky hand with his gift of seeing the future. In a way, this metaphorically reminds me of how 6s have a gift of thinking through what could possibly happen in the future. Though of course this isn't what Bruno is exactly doing in the film. The self-preservation 6 is the most openly warm and friendly 6, and the one most apparently anxious to other people. I believe that Bruno exhibits the same warm and friendly traits towards Mirabel and his family, and also struggles with the same type of self-doubt and uncertainty that self-preservation 6s experience. And whereas Bruno has 9-ish qualities to him, I see that more as him traveling his pathway line to 9 to cope with his new life living in the walls of the house. I think a 9 in extreme cases of distress would mentally check out to maintain inner and outer feelings of quote-unquote peace, but physically remain in their situation because it would take too much energy to exert such a big shift as to leave the family. A self-preservation 6, on the other hand, while I also think it would be a big stretch to push them here, might more plausibly leave to run away from the tensions and problems they felt they were causing their family. Especially because a common trigger point for 6s is being blamed or attacked, and I think Bruno was under a lot of stress for a long time being blamed for his visions, even though he was just the messenger.
You're gonna be all Bruno makes bad things happen. Oh, he's creepy and his vision killed my goldfish.
6s also feel a huge responsibility towards their family and loved ones. There's an unrelenting faithfulness and loyalty that Bruno displays that feels like the best of all my type 6s. Him leaving after seeing Mirabel's prophecy feels like such a protective act of love, and also him staying close by within the house is him staying vigilant and looking over his family. He was even patching up the cracks of the house. Finally, this might sound too superficial, but I promise this is a real thing. Bruno's energy feels like a mental or head type.
I think you should go because I don't really have a good reason. But if I did, you'd be like, I should go because that's a good reason.
He predominantly processes everything through his mental faculties rather than through his instinctual gut and body or his emotional heart center. All of this, of course, can be credited to the amazing actor, John Leguizamo, who played him, but I've also seen Leguizamo play other head type 6 characters before. He's just got that energy. Time for Pepa. Pepa was probably the hardest one for me to try and type, and even as I share what I'm thinking, I just really don't know. She could be so many different types because we don't see enough of what drives her. But my guess, with a giant boulder of salt, is most likely some kind of type 6. We mostly see Pepa wanting things to be a certain way and then getting upset or stressed if they don't or look like they won't be. She's also quite expressive and reactive to others. So my top 3 guesses at first were type 1 for her desires for perfection and types 4 and 6 for her reactivity. I eliminated type 4 from my hypothesis after a while because she's not entirely self-referencing. She pays a great deal of attention to the concerns of the family and the house and puts pressure on herself to contribute to that. But she also isn't entirely others referencing since she also focuses inward, which we can see visualized quite literally in how her emotions manifest in the weather. So I was down to 1 or 6 for Pepa. There could be a case for Pepa being some sort of hyperbolized, caricatured countertype sexual 1. Though not entirely accurate, she would display the ways type 1s care about things going just so.
My baby's night has to be perfect, and it's not perfect. And people are going to be coming.
You're tornadoing the flowers! The flowers!
And as a countertype 1, she would display outwardly the normally internal battle type 1s have with wrestling between their standards and expectations and reality. But Pepa could also just as easily be a type 6, and the reason I very tentatively landed on 6 is because of how reactive she is at the end of the day. Type 4s, 6s, and 8s are in the reactive triad, meaning they push and express a lot in conflict, and I don't see the internal rigidity of a 1 in Pepa. Rather, she supports others, is supported, and also pushes back. She's one of the only members in the Madrigal family who actually talks back to matriarch Alma with her little one-liners.
You have a cloud!
I know, Mama, but now I can't find Antonio. What do you want from me?
Pepa, calm down!
I'm doing my best.
Yes.
You're lucky it's not a hurricane.
So again, while I really don't know, my best guess would be type 6. I'm also not too sure about Julieta, but my best bet would be type 9. The very first time I watched this movie, I thought maybe she could be a type 2 like me, but after a few more rewatches, I think that while she's just as others focused as a type 2, she doesn't have that I'll step in, savior mentality that I unfortunately really wrestle with as a 2. Instead, she focuses more on group harmony and everyone belonging and mediates when there's family tension because that's probably where her unconscious focus of attention is. Last of this video, but most certainly not least, Abuela Alma Madrigal. I believe that Alma is a social 1. Alma experienced a lot of trauma in her past, which of course would understandably influence how she raised her children and her family overall, but I believe her specific response to the miracle of the Madrigal house is a very 1-ish response. She is constantly focused on keeping a certain standard of the family, which the entire family feels the pressure, consciously or not, to live up to, and her focus on these standards is coming from a very social instinctual lens, being a good model to others as a type of teacher and also leader of their society. And Alma definitely emphasizes this a lot.
We swear to always help those around us and earn the miracle that somehow found us. But work and dedication will keep the miracle burning.
There's an unconscious dependency on her strict standards and principles of how to run a house and lead a town. There is a safety that type 1s find in holding fast to their black and white beliefs and principles and their desire to level everything up. The last thing I'll say is I feel that while Alma cares about how the Madrigal family looks to the townspeople, it doesn't feel like it's coming from a place of shame or needing her whole family to be admired, as a 3 would. It feels more like it's coming from that type 1 repression of humanity, where she rigidly and strictly holds herself and her family to higher standards to be a stable leader for their town. Alma even admits to her unconscious focus at the end of the movie when she looks at the new house with Mirabel.
It isn't perfect. Neither are we. That's true.
Her redemption arc isn't about freeing her authentic self, but more about giving herself and those around her grace to be imperfect humans. Okay, we are finally done with the typing of the Madrigal family. If you made it this far and you watched the whole video, thank you so much as always for watching. Leave a comment below on what you think everyone in the Madrigal family is. It's totally fine if we disagree. I think the only ones that I was truly confident in is Abuela, Isabela. I'm fairly certain about Mirabel, Bruno as well. Strangely enough, kind of certain about Julieta, but everyone else is like, I don't know. So feel free to leave a comment. Let me know who you resonated with relative to your type, because that always fascinates me too. As always, if there's a character or a show or a movie that you really want me to watch and type, just also drop that comment below as well. I'll see if I can get to it. If it's very graphic, violent, or bloody, I might not watch it, but yeah. Let me know. If you're interested in learning more about the Enneagram at an individual level, or you want to see how it can impact you on a personal basis for self-growth and self-awareness, feel free to hit me up at my website, again in the box below. See you guys next time. Bye.